Hello. General Hospital today will revealing. Recent spoilers surrounding General Hospital have reignited intense speculation among longtime viewers as a new and increasingly popular theory begins to circulate about the true identity of Jacinda Bracken. What initially appeared to be a straightforward reintroduction of a morally ambiguous supporting character is now being re-examined through a far darker and more intricate lens. Many fans are questioning whether Jacinda is truly who she claims to be, or whether her presence in Port Charles is part of a much larger deception that could shake several core families to their foundations. As audiences know, Jacinda's past is already complicated. She entered the canvas with a background tied to escort work and quickly became entangled in the moral and legal chaos that defines life in Port Charles. Over time, her proximity to powerful figures such as Nina Reeves, Portia Robinson, and Michael Corinthos has raised eyebrows. Jacinda does not merely brush past these people. She embeds herself deeply into their emotional and strategic conflicts, often appearing at precisely the right moment to influence outcomes that carry enormous consequences. What has truly fueled the latest theory, however, is the growing belief that Jacinda may not be an entirely new person at all. A number of observant fans have begun to suggest that she could, in fact, be Nell Benson, presumed dead but secretly alive after undergoing reconstructive surgery. Within the history of the show, death has rarely been permanent, and dramatic returns under new identities have long been a narrative staple. In this context, the idea no longer feels far-fetched, but eerily plausible. Supporters of this theory point to Jacinda's unusual bond with wily Corinthos as one of the most telling signs. Her comfort level around him appears instinctive rather than earned, as though rooted in something far deeper than casual familiarity. At the same time, Jacinda's willingness to immediately participate in elaborate schemes, including plans designed to fabricate alibis and manipulate timelines, suggests a woman already well-versed in the art of long cons. This is not the behavior of someone reluctantly pulled into danger, but of someone who understands exactly how chaos can be weaponized. Equally unsettling is Jacinda's ability to psychologically maneuver Michael, even when presenting herself in vulnerable or compromised roles. She seems capable of steering his emotions with remarkable precision. Some fans have noted that her actions subtly echo past manipulations associated with Nell, particularly in how she reopens old emotional wounds connected to Abigail Devane. These moments feel less like coincidence and more like deliberate pressure points, chosen to destabilize and distract while she advances her unseen agenda. Another chilling aspect of the theory lies in Jacinda's apparent immunity to danger. Despite placing herself alarmingly close to volatile situations involving her alleged sister and child, she repeatedly escapes unscathed. In a town where even the most protected figures often pay a price, her survival seems almost strategic. This has led some viewers to believe that she is not merely reacting to events, but orchestrating her movements with calculated foresight, remaining just close enough to observe and influence, without ever stepping fully into the line of fire. Social media discussions reflect a divided audience. While some viewers are energized by the possibility of such a high-stakes reveal, others express frustration with how Jacinda has been written since her return. A recurring sentiment is that her character has lost momentum, becoming less dangerous and less compelling, especially when tied to recycled romantic arcs involving Michael. For these fans, the Nell theory represents not just a twist, but a necessary escalation that could restore urgency and menace to the storyline. Ultimately, this speculation underscores a larger truth about the world of Port Charles. Identities are fragile, truth is often buried beneath layers of manipulation, and the past has a relentless way of resurfacing. Whether Jacinda is genuinely a woman trying to survive the wreckage of her choices, or a master of disguise executing a long-awaited revenge remains unconfirmed. Yet the very fact that this theory feels plausible speaks to the show's enduring legacy of deception, reinvention, and psychological intrigue. As the narrative continues to unfold, viewers are left watching every glance and every decision more closely than ever, aware that in General Hospital, the most dangerous secrets are rarely the ones spoken aloud. Speculation surrounding Jacinda Bracken continues to intensify, And what makes the conversation so compelling is not just the mystery of who she might be, but what her existence represents within the current narrative structure of General Hospital. Viewers are no longer simply asking whether Jacinda is hiding something. They are questioning whether the show itself is using her as a narrative crossroads, between repetition and reinvention, between nostalgia and evolution. A significant portion of the audience remains deeply attached to the idea of Nell Benson, returning in her original form. For these viewers, Nell's psychological volatility, moral ambiguity, and raw intensity are inseparable from her original portrayal. They argue that if the character is ever revived, it should be done without disguises or identity swaps, allowing the full weight of her past actions to confront Port Charles directly. At the same time, even supporters of this idea acknowledge a growing fatigue with resurrection tropes. In recent years, repeated returns from the dead have lost their shock value, and what once felt thrilling can now feel predictable, even lazy, if not executed with exceptional care. Others within the fandom take a more nuanced position. They recognize that the clues surrounding Jacinda align remarkably well with the possibility that she is now operating under a new face and name, whether through reconstructive surgery or a carefully planned identity overhaul. From her emotional intelligence to her instinctive grasp of manipulation, the pieces do appear to fit. Yet these viewers hesitate not because the theory lacks logic, but because they see potential being wasted. They argue that Jacinda functions best as a new entity, a fresh catalyst who can stir chaos without being shackled to Nell's extensive narrative baggage. From this perspective, reviving Nell separately, portrayed by the original actress and introduced through a different narrative doorway, would preserve the power of both characters rather than collapsing them into one. Perhaps the most intriguing theory, however, moves beyond the binary question of whether Jacinda is or is not Nell. Some fans have proposed a far-reaching genetic connection that would expand the show's already complex family web. According to this theory, Jacinda could be the daughter of Silas Clay, making her a half-sister to both Nell and Willow Tate. The visual resemblance some viewers perceive between Jacinda and Kiki Jerome, another of Silas's children, has only fueled this speculation. If true, this revelation would dramatically reshape existing relationships, particularly those involving Michael Corinthos, who would suddenly find himself connected to four sisters, each carrying her own history of trauma, secrecy, and moral complexity. What makes this theory especially compelling is that it does not rely on resurrection or disguise, but on lineage and legacy, themes deeply embedded in General Hospital's DNA. The show has long thrived on the idea that the sins and secrets of parents echo through their children, resurfacing years later in unexpected ways. Introducing Jacinda as another branch of Silas Clay's fractured family tree would allow the writers to explore identity, inheritance, and psychological inheritance without undoing past deaths or retconning established history. At the heart of all these theories lies a deeper concern shared by many viewers: purpose. Jacinda's presence feels deliberate, yet incomplete, as though she has been positioned just short of a major revelation. Her actions suggest knowledge that exceeds her stated backstory, and her emotional reactions often feel weighted with unspoken context. Whether this leads to a shocking familial reveal, an identity unmasking, or a confirmation that she truly is a new player with old instincts remains uncertain. What is clear is that the audience senses untapped narrative potential and is eager for the show to commit fully to one direction. Ultimately, the question of what is really going on with Jacinda is less about guessing her true identity and more about what General Hospital chooses to prioritize moving forward. Will it lean into its legacy of dramatic returns and shocking disguises, or will it carve new paths by expanding its family mythology in unexpected but grounded ways? Jacinda stands at the center of that decision, a character who could become either a symbol of recycled twists or a gateway to richer, more layered storytelling. Until the truth is revealed, every theory reflects not just curiosity, but a collective hope that the next answer will feel earned, meaningful, and worthy of Port Charles' long history of secrets. Although Jacinda Bracken has only appeared relatively recently in the world of General Hospital, her growing proximity to Michael Corinthos is already raising serious concerns. both within the story and among viewers who understand how fragile Michael's emotional balance has become. On the surface, their connection may appear casual or transactional, yet the underlying implications suggest something far more destabilizing, particularly for a man whose life has been shaped by betrayal, loss, and repeated manipulation. Jacinda's background is not a mystery. She has been clearly established as a woman who survives by selling herself, someone who approaches life through the lens of opportunity and financial gain, rather than emotional attachment or moral restraint. Her willingness to do whatever is required in exchange for money defines her choices and shapes her interactions. This does not make her inherently evil, but it does position her in direct opposition to the fragile emotional rebuilding that Michael has been attempting since the collapse of his family and the repeated betrayals he has endured. For someone like Michael, whose history includes being emotionally exploited by women who weaponized intimacy, this dynamic is especially dangerous. What makes the situation more troubling is how easily Jacinda has embedded herself into Michael's orbit. Their growing closeness does not feel accidental. She appears comfortable navigating his vulnerabilities, understanding when to soften her presence and when to push just enough to gain trust. Whether intentional or instinctive, her behavior risks reopening emotional wounds that Michael has never fully healed. Even if her motivations are purely financial, the emotional consequences for Michael could be profound, drawing him back into a pattern of misplaced loyalty and compromised judgment. This is precisely what alarms Carly Spencer, whose instincts as a mother and survivor have rarely been wrong. Carly sees Jacinda clearly, not through romantic illusions or sympathetic excuses, but through experience. She recognizes a transactional relationship when she sees one, and understands how quickly such entanglements can spiral into emotional blackmail, legal trouble, or public scandal. From Carly's perspective, Jacinda represents a threat not only to Michael's heart, but to his stability, his reputation, and even his safety. Carly's opposition is not rooted in judgment alone, but in fear born of history. She has watched her son fall under the influence of women who exploited his trust, and she has paid the price alongside him. The idea of Michael forming any kind of attachment to someone whose loyalty is dictated by money is intolerable to her. She understands that Jacinda's profession is not simply a past mistake, but an ongoing lifestyle that prioritizes survival over sincerity. To Carly, allowing Michael to continue down this path is equivalent to watching him step willingly into another emotional trap. The danger lies not only in Jacinda's intentions, but in Michael's state of mind. He is vulnerable, exhausted by conflict, and yearning for control in a life that has repeatedly stripped it away from him. Jacinda's presence may feel uncomplicated to him, free of expectations and emotional demands. Yet that simplicity is an illusion. Any relationship built on imbalance, secrecy, or transaction inevitably exacts a cost, and Michael has always been the one who pays it. As this storyline continues to unfold, the question is not whether Jacinda will influence Michael, but how deeply that influence will cut. Her role in his life has the potential to undermine his progress, strain his family relationships, and push him toward decisions that echo past mistakes. Carly's resistance, while forceful, may be the only barrier standing between Michael and another devastating fall. In Port Charles, proximity is rarely harmless, and intimacy is often the most dangerous currency of all. From the moment Jacinda Bracken stepped into the world of General Hospital, her presence has felt deliberately restrained, as if every move she makes is calculated to reveal just enough while concealing what truly matters. On the surface, she appears to be exactly what Port Charles expects her to be, a woman with a troubled past, surviving through transactional relationships, willing to adapt herself to whoever holds power or money. Yet beneath that carefully curated exterior lies a sense of unease that grows stronger with each passing episode, suggesting that Jacinda is not merely reacting to circumstances, but actively managing them to protect a truth far more dangerous than her profession. Her growing closeness to Michael Corinthos is a crucial part of this strategy. Jacinda presents herself as supportive, attentive, and unthreatening, someone who appears to stand beside Michael rather than in his way. She does not openly challenge his decisions or question his motives. Instead, she reinforces his sense of being understood at a time when he feels increasingly isolated from his family and emotionally worn down by conflict. This alignment, however, feels less like genuine loyalty and more like positioning. By placing herself within Michael's emotional perimeter, Jacinda ensures proximity to influence, access to information, and protection from suspicion. In Port Charles, closeness is rarely accidental, and those who stand nearest to power often do so for reasons they cannot afford to reveal. What makes Jacinda especially unsettling is the precision with which she controls the narrative of her identity. She allows others to believe they already know her, that her past as a sex worker explains everything there is to understand. This assumption works in her favor, as it encourages people to underestimate her and dismiss the possibility that she could be hiding anything more significant. Yet her behavior contradicts that simplicity. She avoids personal disclosures with subtle skill, redirecting conversations, minimizing details, and maintaining an emotional distance that feels intentional rather than guarded by shame. This is not the avoidance of someone afraid of judgment. It is the caution of someone protecting a secret that could fundamentally alter her standing in Port Charles. Jacinda's outward support of Michael therefore becomes deeply suspect. While she appears to encourage him, stand with him, and even validate his perspective when others do not, this support functions as a shield. It allows her to remain close without scrutiny, to be perceived as harmless while quietly shaping the environment around her. In doing so, she becomes a hidden variable in Michael's already fragile life. His history makes him particularly vulnerable to this kind of influence. He has been repeatedly manipulated by people who exploited his need for connection and control, and Jacinda's presence risks pulling him back into a familiar cycle of trust, followed by devastation. The danger Jacinda represents is not immediate or explosive. It is slow, corrosive, and psychological. She does not need to act overtly to cause damage. Her mere presence, combined with the secret she is hiding, is enough to destabilize relationships and compromise judgment. The longer she remains close to Michael without revealing the truth, the greater the eventual fallout will be. When that secret surfaces, it will not simply expose her. It will retroactively poison every moment of trust she has built, forcing Michael and others to question whether any part of their connection was ever real. There's also a growing sense that Jacinda herself understands the magnitude of what she is hiding. Her restraint suggests foresight, an awareness that timing will determine whether the truth destroys her or empowers her. She does not rush revelations or provoke confrontations. Instead, she waits, observing the shifting dynamics of Port Charles, assessing when exposure might be unavoidable and when silence still serves her interests. This patience implies long-term intent rather than desperation, reinforcing the idea that Jacinda's rival was not random but purposeful. As speculation intensifies, the mystery of Jacinda's identity becomes less about guessing a single twist and more about anticipating the consequences. Whether her secret involves bloodlines, past crimes, stolen identities, or connections to legacy families, it carries the potential to fracture the already fragile equilibrium surrounding Michael. It threatens not only his emotional recovery, but his trust in his own judgment, something he has struggled to reclaim. The eventual revelation will not arrive quietly. It will force a reckoning, exposing how easily support can mask danger and how trust can be weaponized by those who understand its value. For now, Jacinda remains suspended between ally and adversary, protected by the assumptions others make about her and sustained by the silence she fiercely guards. She does not want Michael, or anyone else, to see beyond the role she has chosen to play. Yet Port Charles has never been kind to secrets that linger too long. When the truth finally emerges, it will not simply answer the question of who Jacinda really is. It will reveal how deeply she has already reshaped the lives around her, and how dangerous she has been all along without ever appearing so.